Right. You're actually moving dollars from Xaxis both to TV and to digital video, right? So, I mean, what's your perspective on, on the front lines in the trenches? What are we adopting the operational standards of digital and apply them to TV, or vice versa, or is it just a new set of standards?
No, first and foremost, we're not trying to move dollars from broadcast to digital. If our success at Xaxis has been working with the broadcast team. So we did a campaign using the same measurement tools, GRPs, that we use in broadcast and extending it to digital. That's where I think the unique opportunity is. I think there's so much focus on actually replacing or changing how broadcast works, where what everybody said is broadcast still is a very powerful medium. And what we have to be able to do is look and say, how do we utilize data, technology, digital to extend those buys and enhance them? And that's been our focus.
Okay. And what are your biggest challenges from the perspective of driving an automation agenda, but yet doing it cross-platform? Like, there seems to be we keep talking about the incongruencies there, whether it's measurement or whatever.
Yeah, the biggest challenge is talking the same language, right? So, you have digital that is run one way, and you think about things like, what's the outcome that we're trying to get to? If you think, if you're a marketer and the end goal is, wouldn't it be great if I had an attribution model that took into broadcast, took in digital, and took in search, and I was able to actually see where my message was resonating, how powerful it was resonating at different opportunities, and what content it sat best with. The challenge in doing that is having one common vernacular language that goes across them. And that's where we've run into an issue with it. So we're getting close to it, but I think as we progress down that line, as we bring more, and Rob mentioned it before, technology to that, to be able to understand how we measure that, that's the ultimate outcome for us.
Who's at the helm of defining that vocabulary? Is it?
Yeah, in Group M, that from my perspective, that's set from broadcast. So in our case, that would be Reno who would set the agenda, because that's where the budget sits, and that's where our job at Xaxis is an extension of audience. So if what we do every day is understand how we identify the individuals that our advertisers are trying to speak with, and how do we connect with them. So, but that agenda is set from broadcast, and we're an extension of that. And that's where I think we work well. We actually introduced, most recently, a new division within our company called Modi Media, which is run by someone like Mike Bologna, which sits in the middle. And that's going to be addressable. So I think it's not one or the other. It's using these different tools and these centers of excellence to be able to then come together. And that's where it should be. Once the agenda is set, how do you utilize each tool within the toolbox to be able to deliver on that?
So, by virtue of sort of saying that that Reno and his team on broadcast are driving the agenda, because that's where the majority of the budget sits. I mean, can I infer from that it still is a TV world and we just all live in it?
I would say 100% it's a TV world and we live in it. And I think, TV again is a very powerful media, but what we want to be able to do is, so is digital. And I think looking at digital, and if all the conversation around this too is, how do we extend content to digital? How do we bring environments or the type of reaction that we want in a digital environment? That's an extension of broadcast to that. So I think it is a TV world that we live in. I think digital is a powerful mechanism to extend that. And I think data is the underpinning which will allow us, looking at things like XCR, to be able to see cross-screen and how we're actually extending those buys.
Where does creative come into the conversation?
I think that's our biggest hole. If you look at it, we've spent so much money and time in creative for broadcast. I think we haven't done our part as an industry to be able to look at adaptive creative for digital and for video. And I think that's something where we have to certainly make strides over the upcoming years to be able to extend that. Because right now, what are we doing? We're packaging up a 30-second spot and we're
throwing it on multiple screens.
Exactly.
But you guys have actually made some investments there. Like, you've recognized that, right?
We have, and we will continue to do that. With our group, for Xaxis, we recently merged with 24/7, which is another WPP company, and we have a division within that which offers creative services called Alchemy. So, for us, even though you look at us as an audience platform, understanding creative and making that investment and putting that as a resource to our clients is something that we're putting forward.
So, Gian made a really interesting comment when he talked about the power of digital video being about engagement and deeper, sort of a higher touch relationship with an audience. But I guess when we talk about audience extension and audience buying, again, fishing with a net or fishing with a line, right? I mean, are we really using trading desks to buy video because it's interactive and it's engaging?
I have to go through the thing. We're not a trading desk, but yeah, I think about, like, I take the train to work every day, and people are sitting on tablets looking at full-length videos. That's an opportunity that we have to take advantage of. So again, it's changing. We have to extend to that, right? We have to take advantage of. Doesn't matter necessarily where they're watching it. It matters what the content is, and then the device. And we want to make sure that we can bring our message or our client's message to anywhere that their customers are, and do so in the most efficient manner that we can.
And I sort of holistically refer to trading desks, but I mean, I know you guys have a very strong sense of your DNA, so I want you to elaborate on the delta there, because I think it's an important thing to draw attention to.
Sure, you know, for us, it's technologies are underpinning, and data, and if two things that we pride ourselves on are the heartbeat of our business, it's proprietary data and proprietary media. So again, trading is something that we have to be experts at, but it's much more than that. Yeah. You know, do we operate at DSP? Yes, but it's what we're actually utilizing there. It's having access to a proprietary inventory outlet that is best of class that our clients can't get anywhere else, and then layering in data, proprietary data segments that they can't get anywhere else.
Right. So I want to turn this over to Adam and ask you, from your perspective, Adam, where does creative fit into the conversation, specifically the cross-platform conversation?
I think it's central to it, but it's not about creative in isolation, right? So to Brian's point about speaking a similar language, we're a holistic marketing services agency at Digitas, right? It's a marriage of media and technology and creative, all underpinned by data. So as long as we're speaking a consistent language that's fueled by that, we can all get to similar insights that will build similar ideas, that will build similar innovation. And what I mean by that is we're in it together. We have a consistent and common focus and approach to audiences that we want to reach and the outcomes that we want to drive, whether that's through content, whether that's building a new consumer experience, or creating a big creative platform. It all depends on what we're trying to achieve at the end of the day, but we can't think about it in isolation. You could always have a great creative idea. You could always have a really unique media plan or approach or execution, but if you don't put it all together, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be nearly as effective. It's not going to reach necessarily the right audience. It's not going to be measured appropriately. So if you don't have that common language, focus, and approach, it doesn't matter how smart the thinking is.
Right. Gian and Dave, I would like you guys just to comment on, for Blueprint and for sort of XDR and stuff, how are you normalizing for creative? Or when you guys are just, you know, these initial sort of toes in the water attempts we have now at sort of really trying to understand cross-platform performance, are you normalizing that for the same creative? Or, I mean, I know, Dave, you're taking into consideration different creative variants, but where is creative in the dialogue about measuring cross-platform?
I think that creative is an important element. I think what agencies do really well is tell compelling stories, and I think telling those stories across platforms hasn't really been cracked. I think that the stories have been very monomedia focused, or as Brent said, taking something from television and just putting it out on digital. I think that in order to do that, as Adam was saying, you need to understand what it is you're trying to drive and develop content and the story that can work across time and across platforms. I don't see that anywhere yet. I think that there are probably groups that are starting to do that. You've got media companies now developing creative capability. I think that's part of the reason, because they have a view across media platforms that a traditional creative agency that's focused just on broadcast media, or a digital agency that's just focused on digital, doesn't really have yet. But the reality is most of the measurement that's being done is around reach. It's about audience delivery. It's not about the impact of what those messages are doing, either from a resonance or reaction standpoint. And as I said earlier, I think that's going to be the fundamental change, because that will align advertising with the advertisers' business objectives. Yeah, that's a great insight. Gian, for Blueprint?
So I would say that before digital, it was generally recognized that the creative part of a marketing plan was accounting for 65% of the change in a brand's market share. I think that when digital came along, creative was somewhat forgotten, and it became a very kind of a quantitative, mathematical driven world where creative is kind of playing second fiddle. I think that we are at the beginning of a change in that. I think there's a lot of maybe recognition now that the device that a message is being delivered on demands something unique to, and I think it was just said on the panel, something unique. And you can't just take a 30-second TV commercial, cut it down to 15 and write online, although, by the way, that's what has been happening. And in fact, if you look at the decline in rich media usage over the past several years, it traces pretty directly to the fact that it costs more to produce it, and why don't we just take a TV commercial and cut it down and run it. But I think that maybe because the research is being done now, that it's beginning to be realized that the way that the consumer is interacting with these different devices is different. Their mindset is different, and you're going to have to say or deliver a different message depending on the device. So I think we might be at the beginnings of a resurgence in the creative aspects of our world.